This is the BBC World Service, and here's what World Book Club will be reading.
Marley Almeida wakes up dead and discovers he has only 7 moons, 1 week, to solve his own murder before his spirit moves on. Ghost writer Shehan Karunatilaka's darkly funny satire, The 7 Moons of Marley Almeida.
World Book Club, from the 2nd of December. Conversation with Kim Chakanetsa,
a video gamer who founded the first female-owned esports organisation in South Africa, speaks to a Belgian presenter and player about the appeal of gaming and what it takes to make a name for yourself in this highly competitive, male-dominated world.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
This is the BBC World Service. I'm Johnny Diamond, and World Questions today is all about Ecuador. This South American country was perhaps best known for its rich, biodiverse landscapes and the world-famous Galapagos Islands, but it's now becoming better known for its massive increase in violent crime, fueled in part by drugs cartels, which have moved into its borders. Last month, Ecuador elected a new president, the billionaire businessman Daniel Noboa, who at just 35 will be the country's youngest ever leader. Can he solve Ecuador's problems? A rapidly rising murder rate, extortion, kidnappings and corruption. And what about youth unemployment and the droughts that have resulted in electricity rationing and power outages? Join me and 4 prominent politicians and analysts as they take questions from the public in Ecuador. That's World Questions Ecuador, coming up after the World Service News.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The Israeli army is conducting a raid on the largest hospital in the Gaza Strip. More than 100 soldiers are systematically searching the Al Shifa building, interrogating patients, medical staff and anyone sheltering there. The Israeli military described the operation as precise and targeted against Hamas. More from Ilan Nell.
The Israeli military also says that it has uncovered weapons in the course of its searching, but we know that it has been down to the basement according to staff there, but it says it has not found any hostages. Of course, the claim that has come consistently from the Israelis is that this hospital, some of its buildings, also an underground tunnel system which it says is underneath the hospital, is used by Hamas as a kind of command and control centre. That is something that the US says it has seen evidence to corroborate, but Hamas and medics who work there have strongly denied that's the case.
A fuel truck is reported to have entered the Gaza Strip from Egypt for the first time since the current conflict began. The truck is expected to be used to refuel United Nations vehicles transporting aid into Gaza. Melanie Ward, the head of charity Medical Aid for Palestinians, told the BBC one truck wouldn't be enough.
The situation, as I know for sure, is that aid operations run by the UN have ceased, that our own staff, we don't have fuel either, and we're expecting a big shipment of medical items to arrive into Gaza in the next couple of days. We're not able to distribute those without fuel. And what we need here is not a one-off small delivery of fuel, but a constant supply of fuel so that humanitarian operations can function.
Britain's Supreme Court is about to deliver a critical judgment on the legality of the government's plans to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda. Earlier this year, a lower court decided the policy was legal in principle. Our Africa correspondent Anne Soy has been finding out the mood in Kigali as they await the verdict.
There has been a bit of discomfort in the country with regard to how this whole scenario is being phrased, and the government spokesperson has in the past told us that, sending asylum seekers to Rwanda is not a punishment, and they're very keen to be seen to be providing a solution. There are critics. One of the former presidential candidates who was detained for many years, Victoire Ingabire, has penned her criticism of this deal in the Cambridge Journal of Law, Politics and Art, saying that Rwanda is just not the right place for asylum seekers to be sent.
A new study says climate change is severely damaging human health, which will continue to worsen as temperatures rise. The Lancet Countdown report says global warming has already led to a substantial rise in heat-related deaths, disruption to food and water supplies, and the spread of disease. The report repeats calls for a move away from fossil fuels. World News from the BBC. The Chinese leader Xi Jinping is spending the night in San Francisco ahead of his first face-to-face talks with President Joe Biden in a year. Since President Xi's last visit to the US in 2017, the two countries have engaged in a trade war and repeatedly disagreed about issues including security and human rights. There's been speculation that the meeting on the sidelines of an Asia-Pacific summit could lead to a resumption of military communications. Taiwan's two main opposition parties have formed a coalition to fight January's presidential election, a deal that could change the island's relations with China. Nikki Bristow explains how.
Beijing considers Taiwan part of its own territory, and its attitude towards the island depends on who's in power there. By joining forces, the opposition candidates now have a better chance of defeating the frontrunner, who favours greater independence for the island. The opposition has called for closer ties with Beijing, and Chinese leaders would welcome their victory. Less antagonism between Taiwan and China could also calm the wider region, but in the end, it will be up to Taiwanese voters to decide how close they want to be to China.
There's been a steep drop in the annual rate of inflation in Britain. It fell to 4.6% in October. That's more than 2 percentage points lower than the previous month. The latest figures mean that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has achieved his goal of halving inflation this year. The English Premier League football club Manchester City has posted a record revenue of more than $888 million for the last financial year. The team, who this year won the Premier League, the FA Cup and the Champions League, made $124 million more than last year. They've exceeded the profits of their arch-rivals Manchester United by more than $80 million. That's the latest world news from the BBC.
This is the BBC World Service. I'm Johnny Diamond, and welcome to World Questions, the programme that puts people and their questions at the heart of the debate. This month we'll be hearing questions and answers about Ecuador, this South American nation which borders Colombia, Peru and the Pacific Ocean, was once a relatively peaceful country, perhaps best known for its rich biodiverse landscapes, Amazonian rainforests and of course the world-famous Galapagos Islands. But the murder rate in Ecuador quadrupled between 2018 and 2022, an increase caused largely by the drug trade and the violence it brings. Now the country is in the grip of an unprecedented crime wave which has seen a rise in not just murders but also kidnappings and extortion and widespread corruption. Last month Ecuador elected a new president, the billionaire businessman Daniel Noboa, who at just 35 years old will be the country's youngest ever leader. Can this politically inexperienced newcomer tackle the powerful drugs gangs? And how will he do it? He has just 18 months until the next election and no majority in the National Assembly. And what of Ecuador's unique environment and its economy? In August, citizens voted to ban oil drilling in a protected area of the Amazon rainforest, a move celebrated around the world by environmental activists. But what will replace the lost revenues and create new jobs for young people? There's plenty to talk about, and with us to take questions, hopefully to give us some answers on the future of this extraordinary country, is our panel. Andrea Gonzalez-Nari. She's in Quito, the country's capital. She ran for vice president in the election earlier this year, but in August her running mate was assassinated after leaving a campaign rally in Quito. Welcome to the programme, Andrea. Very good to have you here.
Hi Johnny, it's a pleasure to be hearing the questions about this paradise, as you say it, that is Ecuador, and how we actually really hope to get out of the problem we are right now.
Thanks, Andrea. Guillaume Long served as Ecuadorian Minister of Foreign Affairs and in other ministries in the government of the Socialist President Rafael Correa between 2013 and 2017. He joins us from Paris, where he now works for the Centre for Economic and Policy Research. Welcome to you, Guillaume.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for coming. Leo Kerda is from the Quichua community of Serena and joins us from Quito, though he's usually based in the Ecuadorian Amazon. He's a climate activist and indigenous rights defender who works to oppose oil and mining development in the Amazon. Welcome to you, Leo. Thanks for making the journey.
Thank you, Johnny. Here to
answer all the questions.
And finally, Maria Sol Borja is a political journalist. She joins us from Quito. Maria, thank you very much. Last but very much not least,
Thank you for the invitation.
let us go straight to our first question. Jose Yanes is an Ecuadorian currently living in New York. Jose.
Drug cartels have infiltrated a once very peaceful country. The right-wing agenda has decimated the public sector during the past 6 years, and austerity will surely continue with Daniel Noboa. How does this government intend to fight crime?
Jose, thank you very much indeed. Straight to probably the biggest topic, certainly in the recent election. A little bit of context, the murder rate has, as you intimated, exploded. 4,800 murders in 2022, quadrupling over 4 years. It's up again this year. It's driven by drugs violence as cartels have moved into Ecuador to transport drugs. Andrea Gonzalez Nader, you're an activist and a politician. You have first-hand experience of the violence that racks Ecuador, don't you?
Hi, well, this has been progressive. The way they have been admitted inside the country, the way the human rights work, preferably for those who have a connection with corrupted judges, it's already taken over. Ecuador is at the brink of turning itself into a narco state. It would be naive from Ecuador to think that we alone can stop the international traffic of drugs and all the power that they actually have, because in Ecuador they do not only traffic drugs, they also traffic timber, species, shark fins, people, guns, it's everything. So the step number one, clean the law system, because what happens...
Andrea, may I stop you briefly? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big questions has to be after the election, whether people believe that the new president can actually achieve this, whether he has even a chance against these almost overwhelming odds.
These elections were incredibly extraordinary, not to be, because at the end of these elections, most of the candidates proposed almost the same steps that had to be taken according to the experience of other countries, because we cannot work on this alone.
Okay, I should say the reason that the current president only has 18 months in office is because the last president dissolved the National Assembly rather than face a vote on impeachment, and that automatically triggered an early election. Guillaume Long, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the question is, how does the government intend to fight crime? I'm not sure whether you know the answer. You're not responsible for the government, obviously, but whether you have faith in the plans there are to fight crime.
Well, I don't know how much faith I have, but I have hopes. There will have to be an array of policies. The person asking the question was talking about austerity. Clearly, the austerity that Ecuador has lived through in the last 6-7 years of massive cuts, of neoliberal reform, sort of rolling the state back, has been extremely detrimental to the security situation. And the state is going to have to come back in with public policies, with security policies, with clearly arming its police and cleaning up its judiciary and doing all the things that a state should do to guarantee the safety of its population. But the security policies themselves are not going to be enough. You're going to need to go back to social policies, because of course we know crime and organized crime thrives when there's poverty. It's important to note that post-pandemic, Ecuador has been the country with the slowest economic recovery since the pandemic in South America. So it's not a coincidence that the big sort of crime surge, the narco surge in Latin America, the biggest, it is in truth a regional phenomenon, but the biggest crisis is right now in Ecuador. And I think the great challenge of the new government is to create some form of national unity, to have a parliamentary majority, which he doesn't have right now. This is going to be very important for him, and to put an end to the kind of really nefarious polarization we've had over the last few years, so that the political class can focus on these huge challenges that lie ahead.
Thank you very much. It should be said, President Noboa won by, I think, 300,000 odd votes. It was a very, very small margin over his opponent. Leo Kerda, campaigner and environmentalist. How does the government intend to fight crime, or how should the government fight crime?
I think one of the first things that the government has to do is the fiscalization of the new mining concessions, because
there is a direct link with the new mining concessions and the narco, and how money laundering is involved, and that has, with the exacerbation of natural resources, how that is impacting the communities in the Amazon. The fossil fuel extraction, the mining concessions, they all do have a direct link with what is happening with violence, murder, and money laundering in Ecuador. In Esmeraldas, the government has no power whatsoever, and the narcos plus the mafias have taken over the whole province. And now in the Amazon, they have been working in different provinces with the impact on indigenous communities. So I think there is a huge commitment for the new government to regulate these new concessions, and also put pressure in the local governments, and with the police, with the military, and assure the local communities that is no longer going to happen. Because what is happening right now is all the corruption has being impregnated at all levels.
Maria Sol Borja, political journalist. Guillaume Long talks about the need for a government of national unity, or at least getting a majority in the assembly. Is there any chance of that?
Maybe. I think that it depends on the real will to make it, to stop fighting one party against another, because we are all the time hearing this is because of the government of Lenin Moreno, this is because of the government of Correa, and this is people is tired about that, because and the fact that Daniel Noboa won the election shows a little bit of this mood. And I think it's important to understand too what does mean all the organized crime in the ordinary life of people. If you see the data, migration to the United States increased 800% between January and August of this year compared to the last year. That shows how this impacts people, because when kids can't go to the school because they are shooting next to the school, you know that it's a real impact in every day. It's not just something to say, I will work with cooperation. It's fine. He needs cooperation, but he has to give answers to social problems like medicine in hospitals, security in schools, and he has a very small time to do it, 1.5 years.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go back to Jose. You asked the question about the government's intention to fight crime. What do you think is the best way?
I think Mr. Long hit it in the nail when he talks about public investment. You know, if the kids don't have an education, don't see a future, you know, corruption and the narcos are gonna take advantage of that, and of course they're gonna sweep up the youth. It's all interconnected, and the lack of spending is really astonishing during the past two governments.
Jose, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your question. Let's move on to our second question. It comes from Vanessa Carrera, who's in Ecuador. Vanessa.
Good afternoon. My question is, what are the possible solutions for the electricity crisis that has caused daily electricity outages across Ecuador?
Thank you very much, Vanessa. About 80% of electricity in Ecuador is produced from hydropower, but a regional drought has absolutely hammered production, and so there are power cuts of 2 to 3 hours daily, and will go on, it is said, until the end of the year. Leo Cerda, environmentalist and campaigner. The electricity crisis, how would you solve it?
I think the referendum in Ecuador just happened in August. Like 5.2 million Ecuadorians decided to keep the oil in the ground from the Yasuni area, and I think this is a great opportunity for the government to invest in a just transition into giving new jobs, but also how to create energy projects that are autonomous to local communities. You don't need the big, massive hydroelectrics. You need to invest in local community development, local energy resources, local solar panels. You know, this is the time in which the government has to listen to the local population, invest in capacity, build the infrastructure, and have energy for the rest of Ecuador.
Okay, Andrea Gonzalez Nader, activist and politician.
During the government of Rafael Correa, they built this huge dam for making hydroelectric electricity, which is called Coca-Cola Sinclair. One of your articles actually is the one that we used to give the news about the more than 7,000 fish years that this mega project has costed more than 3,000 millions, but still not working at the capacity it should be. And it's also becoming a clear danger for all the natural resources that surrounded it. Many scientists say that it's responsible for the disappearance of the highest waterfall that Ecuador used to have, the San Rafael Fall. So there's a problem because we invested so much money in building this utopic hydroelectric plants that will not work, while we are a country that has 12 hours of sun every single day of the year because we are situated in the equator of the planet. And it's also good for the government to stop being the subsidy of fossil fuels, adding to climate change, and start subsidizing the transition instead of the fossil fuels.
Thank you very much. Maria Sol Borja, the question about is the electricity crisis that I presume is a huge problem for you personally and professionally every day.
Yes, it's very disorganized because we don't even know when are the cuts going to be until the day before. So now I know that for today we have in this place where I am now, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. we have cuts, but tomorrow we don't know, so you can't even plan what's going to happen. This is not only a problem of big industries, of big entrepreneurs. This is a problem from people in every day. When the light goes out, and you can't use the refrigerator, and your meal will, so.
No, I understand. Thank you very much indeed. Guillaume Long, your government stands accused by Andrea Gonzalez Nader of putting all your eggs in one basket, of putting too much emphasis on hydropower, which has now let the country down.
Yeah, I don't want to be the defender of the Correa legacy here. I proudly worked in that government, but I think we have to transcend that moment and have the political maturity to try and think of the future. However, Correa left office in 2017 with 5.8 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. We're about to have 40.
Let's talk about electricity and your thoughts on it, if we may.
This is important.
I appreciate
that. The same with hydroelectric, the electricity situation. You had a Correa administration who inherited power cuts in 2009, and then no more power cuts. Lots of infrastructure for the production of electricity, and we actually became an exporter of electricity. And we had 93% of our electricity coming from non-fossil fuel. And now here we are, a few years later, and we're back to the electricity cuts. So what's happened since? There's been a lot of incompetence, a lot of lack of public investment in infrastructure that was built and that needed maintenance, and a lot of the political game of blaming your predecessor, which unfortunately is ongoing. I think we need to leave that behind and wish Noboa luck and help Noboa to try and solve these problems for sure.
Let me go back to our questioner, Vanessa. You're in Ecuador, you presumably suffer from these power cuts. Do you have thoughts as to why they have come about?
Well, thank you for your thoughts on this important issue. I think that there are droughts, yes, in Ecuador, but this problem is in the whole region, right? And it's not that the other countries have these electricity cuts.
Vanessa, thanks for your question, thanks for your contribution. You're listening to World Questions from the BBC. Let's go to our third question. It comes from Juan Carlos Garcia, who works in tourism and travel in the capital Quito, but happens to be in London on business at the moment. Juan Carlos, welcome.
Thank you. Is it possible for the new government to reestablish cooperation with the USA to once again not only provide key surveillance that it strengthen Ecuador's anti-drug activities throughout the country? How would a geopolitical move like this be possible in Latin America, a region where the USA has been losing political allies?
Thanks very much, Juan Carlos. It's worth mentioning, and we're not playing the blame game, but it is worth mentioning that the former president, Rafael Correa, told the United States to leave the base that it had in the port city of Manta in 2008, and that was enabled Ecuador, many say, to keep an eye on its maritime exclusion zone, a huge maritime exclusion zone. This week, President Nobea has been in Washington, D.C., though not seeing members of the administration there, as far as we're aware. Guillaume Long, can I ask you, first of all, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, what you think of the idea of re-establishing cooperation with the United States, perhaps allowing them to re-establish the base that they had at the port city of Manta?
Security relations with the US have been re-established. There was a big U-turn under the Moreno administration, 2017 to 2021. And this has been ongoing under the Lasso administration. This is something that the United States is very keen to maintain. Why? Because the US are back in force with the FBI, with the Southcom, with military cooperation, police cooperation, intelligence cooperation with Ecuador. I think right now the situation is so out of hand that probably it is going to be very difficult to be able to resolve this problem without a close security relationship with the United States.
What about the issue, forgive me, what about the issue of that military base? Because you'll be aware some analysts point to that as part of the reason that the grip of the state was loosened.
So there are two issues here. First, a legal one. There is a new constitution since 2008, and the new constitution established Ecuador free of foreign military bases. So this is a constitution ratified in a referendum, the will of the people. By 2009, the United States had to leave. I'm not sure the Manta military base sole purpose was to fight narcotics off the coast of Ecuador. And I think it played a much more geopolitical role. It also played a role in the Colombian conflict. It's a complex issue. We could have a long conversation about this. But constitutionally, there can be no foreign military base, but you can have other forms of security cooperation. But let me just finish on this point. You can have all the international security cooperation in the world, but if you don't have a serious stakeholder in Ecuador, if you don't have serious institutional practices to strengthen your military, to strengthen your police, to strengthen your intelligence services, if you can't get the narco criminal organizations out of your security apparatus, the United States can give you all the money in the world, they can give you all the intelligence in the world, it's not going to work. And it's not working, despite an increase, a very sharp increase, in US-Ecuadorian security cooperation.
Guillaume, thank you very much. Andrea Gonzalez Nada, activist and politician.
Well, the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio has opened the door also for a new kind of work between the FBI, the United States, and the policemen from Ecuador. But I do believe that taking the base from Manta was a hard hit, especially for the coastal provinces. We're talking about two indigenous ethnias that come from that part, which are Cholo and Montubio. They're mainly fishermen. They live in communities, and ancestrally they've been so pacific and so peaceful. But now they are the main targets, are the hot place, the hot spot, where the most amount of violence, and of course where the drug goes out. We have to remember something in Ecuador. If the drug doesn't come out of the coast, it wouldn't get in. Now they can take anything from our coastal area. Ecuador is a relative small country, and we've used most of the energy in the frontiers of Colombia and Peru, instead of doing all the intelligence we need to do in the coastal area, where is the part where the drug goes out. So there you have these communities totally defenseless from the biggest guys and the baddest guys in the world being left alone. And yes, the Manta base was really important because that forbidden them to do what they're doing now in that area. As it was said, because of the change on the constitution, now we handle this concept of sovereignty, that yes, supposedly we cannot have any international military base here from any country, but China practically owns most of our country. So I don't believe that the change in that constitution made us more sovereign country, actually left us defenseless.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I mean, it's worth noting Ecuador is not itself a huge producer of narcotics, but it has turned into an enormous transit point for narcotics moving to the rest of the world. Juan Carlos Garcia, you asked the question about cooperation with the United States. What do you think?
I think there's a direct correlation between the absence of surveillance and the increase in drug trafficking, especially in the coast. I just hope that the new government can do something. But I also agree that we don't depend just on the USA. We do need to take stronger policies and actions. I work in travel, and the image of our country has been deeply damaged by what's going on. So I hope this new president comes strong with hard action and quick action as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your contribution. There we will pause for the news. We'll be back with our Ecuador panel and more questions for BBC World Questions very soon.
This is the BBC World Service, and Simon Matambo is asking why bees are dying. His journey for answers starts in Kenya.
They come from a place called Tharaka, the land of bees. They are sacred to us, but something strange and worrying is happening where I live.
It's really sad to see that when you tell people Tharaka is the land of bees, the next question is, where are the bees?
In the last 10 years, I and many of us have noticed that our bees are in decline.
75% of our food in the world depend on pollination.
Are they disappearing everywhere? What does that mean for all of us?
We are saying that we want to move towards a zero hunger world. We cannot do that if we don't take care of our bees.
I need to find out what is happening.
A Man Without Bees. Tuesday at 9:30 and 20 GMT.
This is the BBC World Service. I'm Johnny Diamond and you're listening to World Questions, debating the future of Ecuador. So far we've discussed the chaos the drugs trade has brought, power cuts and the country's relationship with the USA. Next we'll debate protecting one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, renewable energy, and where the jobs of the future will come from. Join us for more World Questions Ecuador straight after the BBC World Service News.
BBC News with Moira Alderson. The Israeli army is conducting a raid on the largest hospital in the Gaza Strip. More than 100 soldiers are searching the building, interrogating patients and medical staff. The Israeli military said the operation at Al-Shifa was targeted against Hamas. A fuel truck has entered Gaza from Egypt for the first time since the conflict began. It will be used to refuel UN vehicles transporting aid into the territory. Britain's Supreme Court has just ruled that the government's plan to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda to have their cases dealt with there is unlawful. The court said there were substantial grounds to believe that genuine refugees could be at risk of being returned to countries from which they'd fled. International scientists say climate change is severely damaging human health. The Lancet Countdown report has found that global warming has already led to a substantial rise in heat-related deaths, disruption to food and water supplies, and the spread of disease. Taiwan's two main opposition parties have formed a coalition to fight January's presidential election. The deal could change the island's relations with China, which considers Taiwan part of its own territory. The Chinese leader Xi Jinping is spending the night in San Francisco ahead of his first face-to-face talks with President Joe Biden in a year. Since President Xi's last visit to the US in 2017, the two countries have engaged in a trade war. Police in Indian-administered Kashmir say at least 30 people were killed when a passenger bus skidded off a mountain road. About 20 others were injured when the bus fell more than 200 metres down the mountainside. The first of the Cricket World Cup semi-finals has just got underway in Mumbai between India and New Zealand. India won the toss and have chosen to bat first. That's the latest world news from the BBC.
Hello, I am Johnny Diamond. This is the BBC World Service and you're listening to World Questions Ecuador.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email and phone number. That's it, you're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Vedasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Tune in to On Point here on Starr Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it, you're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820, or you can visit our website www.welllamb.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamb@gmail.com. Well Lamb Shippers, fast, reliable and trustworthy.
Tune in to On Point here on Star Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Worldwide, online 24/7. The best radio show all around the world. In your car, at work, at home, on your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Are you ready to turn it up? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Hey, this is Archie and you are listening to Starr Radio UK and the Morning Show.
This is Starr Radio. This is Starr Radio UK. This is Starr Radio UK.
Welcome. Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio. Starr Radio. Radio for the people, by the people.
Love for you runs deep. All of you makes my heart beat. You make the doubt they fade. Jesus, and that's what makes you great. You hold the world in your hands. The hand that made me who I am. Same God now, yesterday, and forevermore. And that's what makes you great. You are God. You will never
Okay, let me say a massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth, and those of you on other planets as well. I want to salute each and every one of you and welcome you once again to the
Love for you runs deep.
Wednesday edition of the morning show.
All of you makes my heart beat. You make
crazy. The 15th day of November, the year 2023. With the time now 10:44 from the hearts of London. As we have been saying all this while, yes, the technical team are trying to work on that noise in the background. I bet you I was telling my producer, Mr. Francis Gaye, that it's very, very irritating. And he says, you know what, we are doing our best to isolate it. And I can tell you assuredly, I was with them the whole of yesterday afternoon when they were trying to work on that. But we've not had a breakthrough yet, but we are working on it still. So just bear with me. But let me say good morning to Mr. Francis Gaye and his team, and then to Mr. Olayomi, Koiki, my colleague and co-presenter, who will be joining us exactly at 11 o'clock with updates from Nigeria. And this evening, keeping fingers and everything crossed, he's going to be joining us with the Niger voices as well. So whatever you do, don't even think of going away, but stay with us. This is Starr Radio, okay? Let me say morning to Anthony Adedeji Aziz, wherever you are. Massive good morning to you. Olakunle, good morning. Long time no here. I hope you are doing very, very well. And then to the one and only Anthony Adedeji, I salute you. I hope you are doing very, very well too. Share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages. Shamsuddin, good morning to you. Bishop Adesina, good morning, and to all the staff at the RBS office in Lagos, Nigeria. I salute each and every one of you there. Okay, let's crack on. Let's see what we're going to be doing today. Now, if it's the first time of tuning in to listen to us on the Starr Radio UK Morning Show, I'm going to bring you the code for the day, the weather forecast will follow suit, then the travel update. And then we continue from there exactly at we're going to bring you the global trot, and then at 11 o'clock we have Mr. Olayomi Koiki joining in to bring you the updates from Nigeria. At 11:30 the lines will be open for you to join in to add your voice to the discussions. Then at 12 o'clock we will not be able to take you to the House of Parliament. We'll see if the technical team will be able to allow us to do so. If not, we will just bring the program to a close, and hopefully they will be able to see to whatever is going on to address the issue for us. So on that note, once again, let me say massive good morning and welcome to the program.
You are one who took my pain.
I remain yours sincerely.
This is the morning show with Archie.
Okay, let's move on. Let's look at some of the program outline there. The true values in life are those that go beyond the things we can see and feel, such as happiness, friendship, and love.
And that's what makes you great.
That is by way of the quote for the day. Now moving on straight to what is happening pertaining to the weather front this morning as well. So for the weather this morning, I can tell you assuredly, for those of you in London and the southeast of England, this afternoon will remain dry and there will be plenty of sunny spells around, with just the odd light patch of cloud drifting by at times. A breezy day expected though. Now this evening and the start of the night will be dry and clear through the early hours. Cloud will build in from the west with spells of rain arriving by dawn. A colder night expected as well. Top temperature is going to be 12 degrees. The lowest is going to be 4 degrees. Pollen level is pollution is going to be low. UV level is going to be low as well. Sunset 16:12 and sunrise for tomorrow morning 07:18 hours. Starr Radio UK. Now let me take you straight to the travel updates as well. So on your travel this morning, if you are in London, yes, in the UK, for those of you traveling on the underground this morning, apart from the Northern Line that's got minor delays, All the others are running a very good service. London Overground has got minor delays as well, but that aside, DLR and London Tramlink are running a very, very good service there. And that's a straight to the major roads in London. A10 has got serious delays. That aside, all the others are running a good service too. The Woolwich Ferry has got a reduced service. That aside, all the others on the river bus running a good service. The London Cable Car, good service there as well. Now keep your eyes on the roads. Keep your eyes on the roads. Have to keep it navigated. I promise our boss. I'm taking you straight to the final segment of the travel update. That's the National Rail. And what do I have there for you this morning? So on the National Rail this morning, cross country has got minor delays. Gatwick Express, Great Western Railway, Greater Anglia, London North Eastern Railway, Northern Rail, ScotRail, Southern and Thameslink have all got minor delays. Also, Island Line has got special service. That aside, all the others are running a good service, and that is why I would say massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today, but you know what? Continue to keep those eyes where? On the road.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancehall taking over. Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancehall taking over. Yo, what's up, people? This is a boy Raskin Bobo One. Tune in every day, every night at the Starr Radio UK with the big man them Archie. When I say Otta, you say fire.
Okay, welcome back to the program Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to exactly 10:51 from the hearts of London. I am Archie, and we will go on to bring you all that is happening from across the globe, and that is Global Trotting. So on the Global Trotting stuff, yes. This morning, from Nigeria, Mills Food, production, go back to farm. Daniel tells Nigerians. Who is Daniel? I'm going to be telling you. You don't obey court orders. Labour knocks federal government. Well, so as we were saying here yesterday, there have been lots of rulings that the federal government has not adhered to. Now they are saying, you know what, we're going to be taking you down, we're going to be making sure that you adhere to the rules. And they are saying, you don't obey it. He who goes to equity must go with equity, or must go with clean hands. But they not seem to be doing so. So the impasse, what's going to happen? The NSA has regretted assaults on Ajero and saying suspects have been arrested. Really? Okay. And then the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu on Wednesday said investigation has commenced on into the assault on the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, and then 6 dead, 6 injured in Lagos Ibadan Expressway auto crash as well. Buhari regime looted Nigeria into bankruptcy. No money for Tinubu to run country. NSA Ribadu is saying. Yesterday we did talk about that, and we're asking the question: are they going to bring Buhari and his henchmen to book or to order? Now, Keridolo, not our business. We're striking to protest economic hardship being visited on our leader and assault on our leader Ajero. NLC and TUC are saying there. Okay, my apologies for that noise in the background. As I did say, the technical team are working on it. They were saying we should have either decide not to hold programs until they sort it out. However, we said no, we cannot leave our people like that, so we have to be here with them, and that is why we are here once again. So thank you very much to each and every one of you for joining in today. That is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. So going on in other stories making the rounds, Rwanda ex-doctor goes on trial in France over 1994 genocide. 68-year-old Suthain Moyemana, who appeared at the Assize court in Paris Tuesday is accused of organizing torture and killings during the genocide. How can people be that wicked? Now, Zimbabwe election campaign, opposition leader kidnapped and found dead. I will talk about that yesterday. And Ethiopian Prime Minister affirms no plans for invasion over Red Sea access. And then in Bamako, Malians celebrate capture of rebel stronghold by the army. Well done to them. And Ghana calls for Africa United front on slavery reparations. Okay, I'll rest my case. I wouldn't comment about that, but it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Okay, bringing you other stories that is making the rounds this morning. In other parts of the world, as you know, it is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. So we start from the fourth position where we are pressed with time, so we have to move on swiftly. Now, moving on straight to other stories making the rounds as well in other parts of Ghana as well. Let me tell you what is happening there. Now, Supreme Court orders detention of police officer for shouting at Chief Justice during proceedings. Oh boy, oh boy. Well, a police officer? How come? Okay. We'll bring you more from that front as well. And curing the Starr problem, Godfrey Dami proposes revocation of Gwan district. Well. Okay, we'll see what is going to happen on that front, but I don't think we'll have enough time today to screen or go into it the way that we want to. But when it comes to other stories making the rounds in other parts of the world, well, in other parts of the world, eyewitnesses say Israeli forces interrogating people inside Gaza main hospital. A journalist at Al-Shifa hospital says soldiers are going from room to room. The IDF says it is a targeted operation, and hostages rates hands Israel as Gaza war intensifies. Pool suggests many Israelis back a deal with Hamas to free the hostages, but not a Gaza ceasefire. Now, Z arrives in U.S. as his Chinese dream sparters. Now, economic woes, but puts the Chinese leader in a more vulnerable negotiation position on this visit. But well, he's going to meet the U.S. president, so let's see what happens. A U.S. senator challenges man to fight mid-hearing. Republican McWayne Mullen rose from his seat at a hearing to challenge a union leader to a fight. Oh, these leaders that we have. That's why in the UK they've got a common sense minister. They've got a common sense minister. Okay. Now, in the UK front, well, the scathing story against the Prime Minister or the government once again. Supreme Court rules Rwanda asylum policy is unlawful. The UK's highest court says the plan leaves people at a risk of being sent back to unsafe countries. But before then, Zwala Braverman accused Prime Minister of betrayal. How did he betray? Well, the former Home Secretary criticizes Rishi Sunak's leadership ahead of a ruling on the government Rwanda plan, which he had gone. I mean, virtually, it's like she knew that, well, it's not going to go through, but she was saying the Prime Minister should have done that and done that and done that. But well, what do you think about all that? Now, someone pushes for Labour vote on Gaza conflict. And those are some of the stories making the round this morning. We're going to be taking a break, and once we come back, we'll have Mr. Olayomi Koiki joining in. Let's enjoy this song. And once again, my apologies for that noise in the background, doing our best to isolate it. But until then, let's bear with us.
All right. This is a letter to the broken. Fighting all the demons in your life that have wreaked heavy carnage. Don't be dismayed. I know know you think that your dreams and everything that you hope for seem to be late. Yeah, looks like your problems don't seem to go nowhere. Just take a deep breath. People talk about you, it's got you feeling down and really, really, really stressed. Don't tell me you don't know the trouble that I've been going through. You self don't know, see, the same thing they go through, me self and they go through too. Who told you the lie when you fall, it's the end of your life? I heard a whisper from above, I pray it opens up your eyes. Broken pencil still right, so keep on writing. And falling soldiers still rise, so keep on fighting. One day you'll lift up your eyes to the skies and your light will be shining. One day you will win, one day you will win. Broken pencils still rise, so keep on writing. And falling soldiers still rise, so keep on fighting. One day you'll lift up your eyes to the skies and your light will be shining. One day you will win, yeah. One day you will win. Now snap on it. News around this life is not fair. Greed is all we see. You gave your heart to the wrong folk, they broke it, and now you put it on free. Fake life on Instagram and Snapchat got you feeling ungrateful. My sister, if you could see the real them, you know you are being a great fool. You wrote a paper and failed. Sit down and write it again. One day you will kill him. You broke your heart and you cried. Give love another try. True love will heal him. I'm not trying to look down on your problems. No, 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 no. I know say you don't know how to sabi solve them. Allow me to introduce you to someone I know. He's a specialist in handling cases and issues we go blow. If you fell, just rise. If you fell, just rise. If you fell, just rise. Wipe the tears from your eyes. If you fell, just rise. If you fell, just rise. Wipe the tears from your eyes. If you fell, just rise. If you fell, just rise. Wipe the tears from your eyes. If you fell, just rise. If you fell, just rise. Wipe the tears from your eyes. Broken pencils still rise. Keep on writing. Fallen soldiers still rise. Keep on fighting, yeah. One day you lift up your eyes to the skies and your light will be shining, yeah. One day, your wedding bells go ring. One day you win. One day you blow. Your wedding bells will ring. One day you win. The paper you pass it again. The first class is waiting for you. International scholarship is coming. Yeah. Scholarship, yes, it's coming.
You are listening to
You come
Starr
out of your own house. One day you shall go ride your own car.
Starr Radio.
One day you
Radio for the people.
One day you will. Your album go hit.
Favorite Afro-Caribbean radio station.
One day you win.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio.
Your enemies will see you on God has done it. The fixer of your life, He will fix it. Yeah, one day you will win. Yeah, one day you will win. Yeah, one day you will win. This heaven, you will make up one day. One day you will win. You will overcome this.
Well, one day you will win.
Break this addiction in your life.
Some way, somehow it does happen, doesn't it? But it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. What a time now, 4 minutes past the top of the hour. And I know that Yomi is in there.
Don't give up one day. Don't give up one day.
Lines to get in here.
Don't give up one day.
And therefore, wherever you are, just stay tuned and don't turn it down. Now, it doesn't matter what challenges you might be going through. Yes, it might be daunting, it might be that serious, you might be trying to sort yourself out. You don't have even a clue. You might be even on strike, as some of the labor force are on strike in Nigeria. But you know what? Some way, somehow, things do pan out. So keep on keeping on. Well, your life has not been taken by God yet. Yeah, so there is hope for you. So let me say massive good morning to my colleague and co-presenter, Mr. Olayomi Koiki. Yomi, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you back in the studio, Mr. Archie. Good morning, Frank, and good morning to all our listeners and viewers around the globe. And welcome once again. The 15th day of the month of November, 2023 is 5 minutes past 11 a.m. It is still the finest African and Caribbean radio station in London.
Yes, listeners, as I did say earlier on, just bear with us with what is happening with that noise. The internal team have not been able to sort what is going on, but we have got the external team that will be joining this afternoon to try to see whether they can resolve that for us. So just bear with us. But it is all coming away from your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, and nice to have you all on the various platforms that you are listening to us from our North London studio. Mr. Olayomi Koiki, I'm Archie here, and we're bringing you everything that you need to know. How are you? How is the family?
Well, we're doing very well. The family is great. Like you always ask, we're grateful that we still have, the family, living in a society that respects, almost everything that you can think of, especially when it comes to education, which we quite value mostly as well in Africa. But it seems that that is not really kicking in. Also, when it comes to, you talked about Benga Dana, we're going to tell you a little bit more about him this morning. He was a former governor of Ogun State in 2003-2011 that is now asking Nigerians to go back to farm. So the family are doing very well, and I hope yours are doing great as well.
Oh yes, by the grace of God, everyone is doing well. We thank God. Okay, and we thank God that every one of you on the platform, Nigeria, has not happened to you. As I did say earlier on, even if you are going through some challenging times, still hold on to it. Who knows? Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, now behind you, you have the picture of the president, and is it the vice president as a
that's our new minister for information.
Oh, minister. Oh, okay. Hey, Shatima, please, I beg you, don't beat me. This one I misquote. This is the minister for information. But let's go to what the NLC has said in the Nigeria Labour Authority Council, and then the various unions, trade unions. Interestingly, they are referring the government that, you know what, you don't obey the laws, you don't obey court rulings, so why do you think that we have to also obey it? So it's virtually a stalemate. Or are they going to be forcing them, sending the DSS there to go and apprehend the labor leader there, the NLC leader there? What exactly is happening, Yomi?
Well, I think the president, like we said yesterday, would like to take extra precaution, because we're talking about a union that has a lot of members. We're talking about a union that gives others and workers listen, even though there might be division, there might be some state that literally might want to do otherwise. But when we talk about the Nigerian Labour Congress, it's been a very, very powerful union, even though we believe that sometimes there might be a little bit of a compromise there and there. But again, the purpose of the NLC and the TUC is to support workers, especially in a very dire economic situation presently in Nigeria. that many workers are struggling. I'm going to try and get a clip of a young Nigerian talking about being an asthmatic patient, but unfortunately trying to get the drugs that is needed. We talked about the diabetics yesterday. We're now talking about an asthmatic patient that they are now struggling. Let's come back to court orders. Does the federal government obey court order? I don't think so. Even this new administration, we've seen the lapses when it comes to judiciary. Many Nigerians might not understand that investors looked at all these before they might think of investing in a country that the judiciary might not work on their behalf. So this morning, the headline: you don't obey court orders. The Labour knocks federal government. According to the TUC president, said the organized labor was not served any restraining order not to proceed with the ongoing industrial action. With the nationwide industrial action declared by the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the trade union is now entering the second day. Remember that this is not just a day, one day. We're going to be talking about this later on Niger Voices with ample of time. This is an indefinite strike that is now going on. The organized labor has said that no court order was received from the federal government or any of its party not to proceed, just like the court refused the order to release Emefiele until there was more pressure. The court order that asked Nnamdi Kanu to be released after rendition and kidnap from Kenya by the former president and the vice president Yemi Osinbajo, the court refused to obey. The same court order, while those 12 were moved from Soka to Abuja, court ordered them to be released, but it took a lot of fight. So you can imagine now that the federal government is talking about court order, and the Labour says, I want to keep quiet on that. You don't even obey court order as well.
Now, interestingly, I know that we're going to be discussing it in detail during the Niger Voices, and I tell you, listeners, whatever happens, the Niger Voices, the sound will be perfect. Okay, that one I can assure you is going to be perfect. So don't you worry about it. But just bear with us whilst we are going through this. Yes, Yomi will give you that sound bite there. But Yomi, when did the court rule the first time that Labour should avoid going on strike? And what was the period for? Was it an indefinite thing that the court has ruled that the Labour Congress can or the Labour unions can never go on strike, or it was meant for a particular time?
Well, there has been some court restraining. Remember that since the new administration on the May 29, the Labour and the presidency have been head to head. And they've been trying to make sure that this strike doesn't go ahead. But it seems that the failure of the government, because this is also one of the reasons why they've come out quickly. You read that earlier, the National Security Agency, NSA Ribadu, the same Ribadu that told us yesterday that the former President Muhammadu Buhari bankrupted Nigeria, and we hope that he will be arrested and he will be questioned. And he will then be, face the reason why under his belt for 8 years, Nigeria went into bankruptcy. But it seems that the NSA is now regretting assault on the NLC. Let me repeat that again. Mm-hmm. The NSA is the National Security Agency, is now regretting not doing something quicker, on the assault on the president of the NLC, the National Labour Congress. Says suspects have now been arrested. Is it because that the strike has went ahead? I hope they've not arrested, an innocent passerby, which we know that happen all the time in Nigeria. But the National Security Advisor, Nuru Ribadu, yesterday said investigation has commenced into the assault on the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress that is on the screen, to the left-hand side next to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Joe Ajaero. The NSA also said some suspects have been arrested in connection with what took place in Owerri in Imo State on the 1st of November. But the Labour has already embarked on a nationwide strike that has now gone into the second day to seek justice over an assault on Ajaero, who was attacked when he was about to lead a protest against alleged anti-labor practice by the current governor of Imo State, Uzodimma, that won his election over the weekend.
Well, listeners, Starr Radio UK, and I know that Yomi is going to discuss this, the labor strikes in Nigeria comprehensively. So bear with us. We'll bring you more details about that. But when it comes to Ajaro's the assault on Ajaro, how severe was it? Was it a minor thing or severe?
It was a big threat, to his life. I saw the video, and again, it's just, to some of us, you ask the question, he actually said that the police, gave him to the lion. It's like giving the goat to the lion. So he was actually pushed to the thugs that works for the governor of Imo State, Uzodimma, that allowed them to beat him to stupid, and then eventually he was moved to the hospital. It seems that again the question is, how do we have respect for humanity? In governance, you have to agree and disagree. We saw what took place in UK, where we've now sacked, the Home Secretary, Brother Sullivan, for utterances when it comes to, police being biased. But it seems that in Nigeria, police are not biased. If you are not in love with the politics, you are likely to be kept into the same dungeon with the criminals to be dealt with.
Well, listeners, is updates from Nigeria with Ms. Olayomi Koiki. I'm Archie here in the South Studios, and we are bringing you everything that you need to know. Let me say good morning to Anthony Adedeji, and thumbs up to you, a lot of love to you as well. Okay, now let's move on to some of the other stories. Daniel, that was why I was asking his name. You said he was a former minister or something. Now he says that
former governor of Ogun State in 2003-2011.
Okay, so a former governor of Ogun State 2003-2011, saying that, well, go back to the farms. Now, why have people decided not to go to the farms? We know that Dr. Chief Sunday Igboho was of the view that people in their communities were being rampaged, killed, and their farms being destroyed by terrorists. Okay, and he was trying to raise a voice that we are not going to be taking this lying down. We're going to be rising up to be fighting against them. But nothing of the sort did happen. He never pushed anybody. He never took any guns. None that I've heard, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, but so people now decided not to go because the government wasn't giving them the necessary protection or shutting those who were perpetrating this act. But now we have the former governor saying, go back to the farms. What is he talking about?
Well, he's not just even a former governor, he's now currently also the senator, senatorial east of Ogun State. He was born in 1956. These are people that had the privilege, to enjoy farming where, terrorists was not attacking them, moving from point A to B. And I'm sure as at the time Benga Daniel was growing up, when he was born, there was not kind of atrocity that is now taking place across Nigeria. Let me first take you through before we go back to Benga Daniel. We're talking about Zamfara State. I have to now harvest, if I just take about a few minutes off.
Okay. Listeners, just bear with us whilst Yomi just does that. Just trying to sort few things out there. But wherever you are, Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. So what informs somebody to say that, you know what? They want you guys to now go back to the farms. Now, he's a senator, right? Now, he's supposed to know that the necessary tools or security issues have been addressed before people will have that assurance or reassurance that they need to go to their farms or they'll be secured when they go to their farms. But it's not the case. That is not what is happening here. So all that we are saying is that somebody sitting there, you can go to your farms and go and farm so that we can get a lot of food to eat. But what about the Fulani menace, the herdsmen there and everything that they are doing? What about that? What has he said about that? Well, I've got Yomi back, so let's go back to Yomi for him to tell us more. Over to you, Yomi.
Yeah, let's take you to Zamfara State. Just yesterday, one of the headlines coming out: Nigerian farmers now forced to harvest crops before due date in Zamfara community over farm invasion, killings by the terrorists and the armed herders as well. According to the report, farmers in some communities in Zamfara State, northwest Nigeria, have resorted to harvesting their produce before the due time owing to persistent cattle invasion by the armed herders on their farmland. But what is actually, Benga Daniel saying? Benga Daniel says in one of the events that took place, in Ogun State, that the former governor is now asking Nigerians to get back to farming for the country to become one of the world's top producers of rice. The question again is, what was his own input as the governor of Ogun State in 2003 to 2011? Did he produce as many farmers that we can talk about today? But it seems that Benga Daniel spoke during the event in Shagamu at the opening of a training workshop. He actually went further to say President Bola Tinubu-led administration is dedicated to elevating Nigeria to the status of one of the world's top producers of rice. How he's going to do that with the insecurity. Let's talk about what took place in Shekperi in Oyo State in less than few days ago. Many killings, and this has got to do again with the Boko Haram terrorists attacking innocent farmers in those communities. The senator, while acknowledging that Nigeria has a great potential in rice cultivation and production, says it is necessary for the citizens to rekindle their interest in farming to meet the local consumption and also generate foreign exchange for the nation.
Now, when some of these people talk, it is like they are
living in the real world.
Yeah, because you see what is happening there. That needs to be addressed. You don't sort that one out, but you can just sit in your office, in your chair, rolling around in your air conditioning, getting all the monies that those workers, those farmers, and those people are using their monies to pay you, and then you make that statement. If it's here, I think by this time his head will be rolling. But well, this is Nigeria, that's Africa, so
they don't resign in Nigeria.
Well, listeners, you can add your voice to the discussions as we are here looking at everything that is happening. That is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Yesterday we did touch on the corruption or the bankruptcy or the bankrupting of Nigeria by the Buhari administration. Now, it's not, I thought that maybe we talked about it yesterday and it's died down, but it looks like it's still going on. Are they ready to call former President Buhari, or because he said that if you dare attack him, he's going to call Nigerians to come and help him?
We can't go to Nigeria because Nigeria doesn't have any. We already closed the border on Buhari. Buhari is going nowhere. You'll probably end up in UK, and probably maybe the National Crime Agency will go after him just like we went after Designing. Well, you're quite right. I mean, it's quite important that under the belt of the former President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years. We were talking about so many things that went wrong, but we can now confirm, just as the National Security Advisor Nuru Ribadu says, under the belt of President Muhammadu Buhari, the country was totally collapsed. Well, the question then is, would Buhari be called, to questioning? Will he be, brought forward? Nobody knows. But like you said, that is not going anywhere, as many Nigerians, is still coming out in some of the many headlines, dailies coming out of Nigeria, this morning as well. But one thing is, we know that Tinubu had a lot of relationship as the one that brought in Buhari in 2015. After Buhari tried a few times, he failed. He couldn't get himself together under the CPC. Tinubu decided, well, let's tell you and teach you how politics is played. Eventually the collapse of the CPC into one body led to Buhari becoming the president. But as we speak right now, the country is going through a lot of difficulties. I was listening to the president team yesterday in Saudi Arabia. A $50 billion, not for Nigeria, is for the whole Africa, by the Saudi group there, but they're going to be giving large chunk of that as a loan to Nigeria as well. Again this morning, the Central Bank of Nigeria extend validity of the old Naira note indefinitely, so you can still keep using it. But one thing is, election is over. It is time to reform economy now. NAPAN tells President Bola Tinubu. The Newspaper Proprietary Association of Nigeria have called on President Bola Tinubu, federal government, to move speedily with his economy reform program, saying elections are over, but it seems that Nuru Ribadu is saying that Tinubu hands are now tied because Nigeria is bankrupt.
Now, is it that, let me ask you, is it inefficiency from the government of Buhari, or is it some cabals? Because we knew that Buhari was saying he was the one trying to fight corruption and all that stuff that he was saying, that he was going to fight corruption. We remember the wife saying that, well,
don't believe all that, Mr. Archie. When politicians are telling you that we're fighting corruption, they are the most corrupt as well. We've seen, dossier and evidence of how, the mismanagement of the forex. Remember that, the foreign reserve, started, going down like it's dancing, yo-yo. But like you said, the question is, what are the indices? What was Buhari doing with the money? Even, evidence says now that, some of the OPL, the oil that we have, has been used to borrow money in advance. So we are now literally struggling as a country, to move forward when it comes to Buhari borrowed a lot. Borrowing is not a problem as long as what we are borrowing can be used properly as well. But one thing that we borrowed for now is the Nigeria, which is about $2 billion, is currently stuck because Nigeria do not have any cordial relationship anymore with Niger. But again, there's so many other areas as well. So going back to what the Newspaper Proprietors Association are saying this morning, the association in a communique signed by its president Malam Yusuf Kabiru and the general secretary Mrs. Angela Emua, after its 2023 annual general meeting that was held on the 8th of November at the Secretariat in Maryland, Lagos, called on government to provide much needed support to the long suffering of Nigerians. Many Nigerians are suffering today. Benga Daniel says we should go back to farm. Many Nigerians want to go back to farm, but they are being attacked. The economy is not doing very well. As we speak this morning, the dollar is still almost 1,000 plus to the dollar, almost 1,400 as at yesterday to the pound. The exchange rate is not helping. Many of us that are outside might be taking advantage of it, but in reserve, going back to those in Nigeria, the inflation is quite high. I talked about the 30% increase, next month. As we speak right now, it's about 26.6%, from the National Bureau of Statistics. So Nigerians are really, really struggling to get things together as we speak right now. Once again, I'll come back again to you in the studio, Mr. Archie.
Listeners, Mr. Olayomi Koiki in our North London studios. I'm Archie here in the South studios, and we're bringing you updates from Nigeria on a Wednesday edition of the morning show. I will hand over to him in a moment. But Yomi, so what has been the reaction from the Buhari quarters? Has any of, we had Lai Mohammed and all those people who were spewing all sorts. Now, has any of them come out to say or debunk that statement that has been made by
I was waiting for Garba Shehu, because I know Garba Shehu is one man that always protect Buhari, but he hasn't said anything yet. But as soon as probably maybe before the Niger Voice says, maybe Garba Shehu would say something, but for now Garba Shehu has not said anything when it comes to Buhari being now accused of bankrupting Nigeria, by the present administration.
Well, maybe by the time we have Niger Voices, there would have been a response. If not, at the DSS, the EFCC, and all those bodies getting themselves ready, lacing their boots up to go after Buhari and his henchmen, as I did ask. Well. You want to know more? You have to make sure that your dials are logged on Starr Radio UK exactly at 18 hours. That would be GMT, right? Okay. Or 17 hours if you are in Nigeria. That is no. It will be 19 hours in Nigeria. 1900 hours in Nigeria. That is 7 p.m. in Nigeria. By GMT, it will be going to be 18 hours. All right then. So let's go back to Yomi for the rest of the stories making the rounds. Over to you, Yomi.
At 28 minutes past, we're taking straight to more of those headlines coming out of Nigeria this morning. Quite a lot. When it comes to Nigeria, there's a lot of things happening simultaneously, from politics to business, to corruption cases. Let's go straight to Ogun State again. The state, of the former and the current Senator Benga Daniel that we've been talking about. The strike is having a big toll as darkness continue to kick in a country that doesn't have a full 24 hours electricity. Remember that the NLC protest means that I was speaking to one of our team in Ekiti State. Returning home, he said that there is no electricity due to the NLC strike. Patients are now stranded. Staff chased out of Ogun Teaching Hospital. Patient at Olabisi Onabanjo University Teaching Hospital, Shagamu, the same location that Benga Dana was speaking. Maybe you should have talked about that more. On Wednesday, are left unattended to by doctors and nurses. This is as the staff of the hospital comply with the directives of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the trade union that workers should embark on an indefinite strike. So you can see that as much as nobody wants to see a situation where hospital is shut down, services are no longer available for the masses that are already struggling. We talked about the young man that is now crying for the cost of drugs for someone that has asthmatic patient. But again, it has to do with the government doing what it has to do to make sure that such strike does not happen in the first place. But again, doctors, nurses, midwives, laboratory officials, record keepers, and the other staff of the Olabisi Onabanjo University Teaching Hospital were seen returning home saying, "We have joined the strike, no work today." So what a very sad situation as we speak right now. Many those of you traveling will be affected as well. And let's take you straight to some of the other headline as well. Once again, this is still Star Radio UK. I'm just getting a breaking news. A Nigerian rapper, Oladips, is dead. A Nigerian pop star, Oladipo Olabode Oladimeji, more popular as Oladips, has died. According to a statement that was posted on his IG, he passed away at exactly 10:14 p.m. yesterday. May so rest in peace. In the late hours of yesterday, videos made rounds on social media of the Lala Kuku Corona seen to have collapsed as his friends surrounded him. Before the video started to circulate, Oladips had taken to his Instagram story to cry out for help. In the post, he mentioned one of his friends and asked where he was. The rapper complained about how he had tried to reach the friend on the phone several times, and they knew he didn't like to be left alone in the house, especially with his condition. The statement noted that Oladips had kept his battle within himself for over 2 years. Oladips' body is now with his family, and the funeral plan will be announced shortly. We pray for him, just as we continue to hope that justice will come for Mohbad as well. Let's go straight to some of the other headlines as well. This is still the Star Radio UK, the finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. As we go into some of the other headlines, Atiku calls for merger of opposition parties to challenge APC. Well, it seems that Atiku wants to do the same Emilokon which Tinubu did to bring in Buhari in 2015, but he will have to wait till 2027. The presidential aspirant of the PDP, People's Democratic Party in 2023, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, said yesterday when he hosted the National Executive Committee of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. The former Vice President Atiku Abubakar believes the merger of Nigerians' opposition parties will help in forming a stronger front against the ruling of APC. Well, he couldn't even sort out his internal party crisis. 5 governors from Makinde to Wike refused to back Atiku at this loss of his presidential ambition. He couldn't even step down, or he couldn't agree with Peter Obi. Peter Obi eventually marched away and went to become the obedient. But eventually, it seems that Atiku says that in 2023, for him now, it seems that they have to come together so that they can be able to win the next election. Well, that will be in the next 3.5 years for now. Nigerians Eileen Williams set a world record for the longest handmade wig. That's quite an interesting one. It seems that many Nigerians still want to set the world record, but it seems that Hilda Bassey lost as the longest cooking has now been taken away from him. Oshiomhole doesn't have the sufficient information. Strike not a political. that is coming from what Ajaro went to do in a way it was not political. It seems that, remember, Oshiomhole was also one time the National Union of Labour member, a president rather, the president of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, on Wednesday took a swipe at the former president of the Nigerian Labour Congress himself, Adams Oshiomhole, for criticizing the ongoing industrial action by the organized labor over an attack on the present NLC leader, Joe Ajaro. Well, it seems that maybe this Ajaro wants to be the next governor as well. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see. I think Adams Oshiomhole, doesn't have efficient info because he's busy with the national politics as well. Let's take two more. We're still wondering what went wrong between 177 Nigerians that have now been returned from Saudi Arabia, but again, the Saudi refused to allow them to get into the country. As we talked about the aircraft, we talked about the aviation industry. It seems that again we take you to Rivers State. 62 passengers escaped death as the aircraft skid off the runway in Rivers State. It was just on Sunday last week we talked about one that skid at the Abuja runway. At least 62 passengers escaped death yesterday as an aircraft belonging to the Nigerian airline Value Jet skid off the runway at the Port Harcourt International Airport in Rivers State. The incident caused panic among the passengers in the oil-rich state after the jet reportedly landed at about 1500 hours, and the passengers and the 5 flight crew members were all on board. The Port Harcourt International Airport is situated at Omagua, Ikuwere local government area of the River State, a state that is blessed with vast amount of crude oil. Is one of the, apart from Lagos State, you'll be talking about River State, but it is just as every state, they are not interested in making sure that safety is their top priority. We're talking about flights that are just less than 1 hour. You might even be better off to travel to Australia, because it is not just only cheap, it is even much more cheaper than going to Nigeria. I was listening to a brother that traveled to Australia from London, and he says he paid less than £1,000 to Australia. Yeah, he would have paid more going to Nigeria. Ghana. He's questioning the BA and the Virgin director why he has to pay less to travel to Australia. That is about 14 hours from Luton, as against 6 hours to Lagos or Abuja, and you have to pay more. It shows again a country like Nigeria is no longer as respected as we might think. But as we talk about the Saudi government pledge to invest in Nigeria refinery and also support the CBN and the federal government. The Nigeria has 3 refineries, but none is in operational while we wait for the Dangote refinery that was commissioned earlier this year. The facility is yet to commence operation as well. But the Saudi Arabian government has now promised to invest in revamping of the Nigerian refinery, according to the Minister of Information and Communication, this time around, not Lai Mohammed, but Idris Mohammed. I hope it's not the same Lai Mohammed that we had for a very long time during Buhari, that kept on telling Nigerians that everything was just perfect. Until now, we knew that Lai Mohammed was the biggest liar, because we are now being told that the bankruptcy of Nigeria today happened under the belt of the former president, under the same cabinet, Lai Mohammed and the rest of them as well. So you can tell that lies continue to be built upon lies, and I don't know why we're getting such. So because of the time constraint, I'm going to go straight to the social media, come back again to you in the studio. But at 1800 hours, the focus is, how soon will Nigeria be able to enjoy, going back to all the services with the strike going on? Will the federal government do whatever it can do to save many as well? I saw, a cartoon that was put together yesterday. Let's see if we can bring that up. That was put together by Steve Hank, on Bola Tinubu's government, and that I've got it right here. And let's see if I can tell you what exactly was written underneath as well as we go into the social media. Steve Hank is the professor of applied economics with about almost 678,000 followers on the X space. Yesterday, he talked about a lot from country to country, from Ghana. This morning, 2 hours ago, he says the Nigerian Naira is history. The Central Bank of Nigeria should be mothballed and put in the museum to save the Naira should install a currency board like the one it had from 1912 to 1959. And what is actually saying that even as at 1912, Nigeria was not yet amalgamated. And we know that the CBN Act came in 1958, 2 years before the current CBN Act was operating. But yesterday again, it posted, which I'm going to read out before we move into what is trending on the X this morning. Once again, this is still the finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, he actually talked about the Ghana one. He says Ghana is the largest debtor in Africa to the IMF. President Akufo-Addo is making yet another deal with the devil. Interesting time ahead. Well, it says, I quote, President Bola Tinubu's requested $2.8 billion in extra funding for the urgent issues has been approved by lawmakers. It includes, among other things, funds for yacht, air fleet, renovations of the presidential quarters. Tinubu's Nigeria equals waste, fraud, and abuse. Interesting time ahead. So what is actually trending at 11:39 this morning? It seems Kaduna is trending at about 11,000. Not too sure what is going on in Kaduna. Funke Akindele, I know she's an actress that wanted to be the deputy governor in Lagos State, but eventually they lost out. I'm not sure why she's trending under entertainment this morning. Mohbad is trending as well this morning, and we can tell that Obedient is trending. But Buhari is still the biggest trending in Nigeria this morning, and I'm sure it's got to do with what took place. So let's look at what at Morris_Moyo says. So these people know that the country is bankrupt, and they are buying yacht and billionaire SUV. Meanwhile, Ribadu said we are bankrupt. Buhari quickly invited NTA for interview. Well, it seems that Buhari has had an interview, but I don't have it yet. Maybe we might have it before 1800 hours. As president, he had never had a single presidential media chat with NTA. Hussein Rufai say, they play now, they blame Buhari, Buhari said they blame Jonathan. Chidi Odenaku say, congratulations to official APC, and it seems that Buhari is being battered. And the last one is coming from Big Week Austin. Say Buhari left Nigeria's debt at 77 trillion. Tinubu has moved it now to 87 trillion in just 5 months. While you are supporting and standing by the mandate, make you day aware of that statistics. Wow.
Interesting what is happening, but I hope that tomorrow we'll be able to bring you Buhari's interview with the NTA. Well, let's see what he has to say.
But the question is, he was never interested in granting interviews. So what could lead this interview, in NTA now? I mean, he had NTA in his pocket for 8 years, and we were begging him to come and speak to us, but he doesn't want to. But right now, it seems that Buhari has something to say.
I think he's finished eating and taking using the toothpick to be cleaning his teeth. So now he has the nama in his mouth. Well, listeners, it's interesting. But let me read comments that Bishop Adesina has put across this morning. Bishop, let me say thank you very much. He says he said there's been blackout since Monday night to today in Alimosho, LGA, Lagos. Everywhere blackout till today. 3 days blackout, still counting. And it goes on. It says Saudi Arabia deports Nigerian, Germany, deport Nigerians also. The rest is UK, Japan, USA, and Canada. Okay, so he says that it's all peculiar to Nigeria. Nigerians will be sent back home from nations around the world, and some of the Nigerians' personal financial accounts will be frozen and taken. I've said these as at last year. Well, if you have a president who is said to have been forged his certificate, then don't think that everybody who has a certificate might have done something and there is something dodgy. But well, the Supreme Court has ruled that he is a president, so we are quiet about that. It will be more obvious from next year 2024. Bishop Adesina is predicting that one again. It is indirect response from international organization to break the asshole country called Nigeria. So you see how I say SO, yes, and then he says 1,250 naira to $1 this morning. Nigeria, how market? Okay, finally he said 1,000 naira gives 460 sefa in Benin Republic border. Nigeria, how market to Nigeria owing Benin Republic also. It remains a question. wow, if Nigeria is holding Benin, then that is a big trouble.
The good news coming from those of us that are, those that are still going through whatever immigration or, asylum seekers, from the Supreme Court says government plan to deport asylum seeker to Rwanda is unlawful. Could that be because we've removed Sullivan Brisman?
Yes, well, I went with all her palaver. We're taking it out.
So it seems that nobody's will be going to Rwanda anytime soon.
Let me say thank you very, very much. But as he said, this evening exactly at 18 hours, he's coming your way. And once again, what are we looking at?
Well, we'll focus again on the NLC. Has the government done enough before allowing this protest to go ahead, or was the government just to delay for allowing that protest to go ahead now that it's now gone into the second day? How soon should we have that coming back? So the focus is going to be on the NLC indefinite strike this evening. I remember my mom got caught up some few years back during Jonathan. We couldn't get her back to UK as quickly as possible because no flight was flying in and out. So it seems that the second day is still something that the government can discuss and bring it down to a conclusion. If otherwise it goes the third day, the fourth day, you can imagine what Nigerians will be reacting on.
But Yomi, a quick one: is the president back in the country or is he outside?
From my information, the president, as at Monday, was still in Saudi Arabia after he had his own, lesser Hajj. As most of the time they travel to Saudi Arabia, they have the lesser Hajj. But I can tell you that that is the information I have. I know that the president doesn't give that information. It's not like Europe, where your president or your prime minister is. I hope he's not having a stopover in France for any kind of business dealing or medical treatment. But the last update, and this is coming now from the official page of the X of the president, on November 11, I joined the key government and business leaders today at the Saudi, and that's all the way, at the investment roundtable in Riyadh, and nothing more than that.
Okay.
So nobody knows where the president is. So now it's still a ghost until he surfaces again.
Who might know? Maybe by the evening time when Olayomi is on with Niger Voices, we'll be having the president. We'll have information from the president saying that maybe he's back to Nigeria because of what is happening in Nigeria at the moment. The NLC strike, if it goes on for a week, boy oh boy, the loss and the chaos that's going to happen. Yomi, thank you very much and see you later.
Bye for now, Mr. Archie.
Bye bye. Well, listeners, we are pressed with time, so I'm going to just crack on straight. But let me say thank you very much to Mr. Olayomi Koiki and to every one of you who was posting comments and those who were with us on the various platforms. I salute you. But I promise you, whatever happens, whether even the engineers are able to sort this irritating noise out before evening or not, I promise you the Niger Voices, because I'm going to see to the production, I'm going to make sure that the sound is nice and clear, because I'm going to do my own thing there, right? Right. Okay. So now let's move on straight to some of the stories making the rounds this morning in other parts of the world, because we have got about only 14 minutes to bring the whole program to a close. As I did say, because we'll try to see whether we can bring you take events from the Houses of Parliament for you. Yes, I think we'll be able to do that. It will be interesting, right? Yes. Okay, when it comes to some of the stories making the rounds on the African continent this morning, DRC president defends record in State of Nations address ahead of elections. What record is he defending? And then Ghana is calling for United Africa to unite, a united front for Africa on slavery reparations. And in Bamako, Malians celebrate recapture of rebel strongholds. So let's pick that one first, and then let's move on straight to the others. Now, the Mali's army has recaptured the strategic northern town of Kidal, a stronghold of Tuareg-dominated separatist group that has long posed a major sovereignty issue for the ruling junta. The capture of Kidal is a significant symbolic success of Mali's military leaders who seized power in 2020. Violence has escalated in the north of Mali since August, with the military, rebels and jihadis vying for control of the UN stabilization mission. That's MINUSMA withdraws from the they withdraw from the country and evacuates its camps, triggering a race to seize control of the territory. However, today, a statement coming from the military hierarchy says today our armed security forces has seized Kidal. The head of the junta, Colonel Azimi Goita, said in a statement read by a representative during a special news flash on state television. The Malian armed forces took up position in the town of Kidal this Tuesday, the general staff said earlier in a statement on social media. Where are they? Those who have been the rebels and those people, have they been driven out? Have they been killed? Because if they are driven out, they're going to gather a raid, organize themselves, and come back. That's what happens. But is there a tendency that we can decide to say, let's talk, let's get everybody, let's sit down and let's talk? Do you think that is going to be possible? Well, it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. Now, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo has delivered a State of the Nations address. During 2 hours, Felix Tshisekedi spoke. 2 hours spoke before the members of Parliament, two chambers meeting in Congress in Kinshasa. Now, Tshisekedi, who has spent nearly 5 years in office, addressed the resurgence of the M23 rebel group against the backdrop of the barbaric aggression on our country perpetrated by Rwanda and its M23 terrorist supporters in the last 2 years. I salute your commitment, he said to the assembly. In response to the ongoing fighting, several foreign forces are deployed in the DRC's east. The president, who seeks re-election, revived his government's military alliances. As part of its peace-building efforts, the government is offering its cooperation to certain international forces present on our territory as part of our international commitments. In the case of some of these forces, the mechanism for their withdrawal are being discussed. This is the case of MONUSCO and the regional force of the East African Community. So they are all there trying to do their best to see if they can restore peace in that particular part of the country. However, do you think the president deserves to have another to be voted into office, another tenure of office, or you think that his performance has been abysmal? What do you think about all that? So coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. The final one from the African front before we move on to other parts of the world. The Ghana's president Nana Akufo-Addo on Tuesday called for a united front with African leaders on demands for reparations for transatlantic slavery and colonial era damages. Now, some Western leaders have recently moved to acknowledge the wrongs of the colonial era in Africa, and museums have begun returning stolen African treasures and artifacts. But the concept of paying financial reparation over a trade that shipped millions as slaves from West and Central Africa remains vague. The Ghana's leader have been vocal in calling for reparations and used his speech to the UN General Assembly this year to demand more acknowledgement of the impact of colonial exploitation. Now, no amount of money can restore the damage caused by the transatlantic slave trade and its consequences, but surely this is a matter that we must confront and can no longer ignore, Akufo-Addo said at a reparation conference with African leaders in Accra. Now, even before these discussions on reparations conclude, the entire continent of Africa deserves a formal apology from the European nations involved in the slave trade, he added. The Akufo-Addo called on Africa to work together with the Caribbean to advance reparations, labeling it a valid demand for justice. So when we get this money, assuming yes, we all match all our forces together, what will those monies be used for? What would those monies be used for? Okay, we got about another 8 minutes to leave the scene. Now, eyewitnesses are saying that Israel forces are interrogating people inside Gaza's main hospital. The story says that, the IDF said its troops are continuing to precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area in the Shifa hospital, in which they are conducting searches for Hamas terror infrastructure and weapons. A journalist inside the hospital said earlier this morning that the IDF was going room to room questioning staff and patients, accompanied by translator and medics. The IDF also said it had delivered humanitarian aid to entrance of the hospital in an earlier
update. The Israeli military said it was trying to bring incubators and baby food to the hospital where dozens of babies need medical treatment. Now, earlier we heard from a charity which said the hospital already has incubators and what's really needed is the fuel to power medical equipment. Well, will that happen or not is another question on the lips of most people. So coming your way from Starr Radio UK. Now, President Xi Jinping, when Xi Jinping stepped off his plane in San Francisco for the APEC summit, it was in circumstances very different to the last time he landed on American soil. 5 years ago, when he was wined and dined by Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, Mr. Xi was in charge of China, still in the ascendancy. It had a buoyant economic outperforming forecast. Its unemployment rate was among the lowest in years, while consolidating his power for a second term. Mr. Xi proudly points to China's flourishing growth model as something other countries could emulate. But by then, cracks were already appearing in what he calls Chinese dream. They have only widened since then. Now, one view is that because of this, Mr. Xi is in a more vulnerable negotiation position this time, though expectation of major breakthroughs are low. So we'll be following very, very closely what is going to happen with Mr. Xi's visit to the US. Okay, now let's come straight to the UK and look at some of the stories making the rounds this morning. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled. The Supreme Court has ruled this morning the government's Rwanda asylum policy is in disarray after the UK's highest court ruled it is unlawful. Ministers say the plan to deport asylum seekers and ban them from returning is needed to tackle small boats crossing. But the Supreme Court upheld an earlier Court of Appeal ruling which said the policy leaves people sent to Rwanda open to human rights breaches. Now, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak responded by saying this was not the outcome we wanted. The controversial policy has been subject to legal challenges since it was first announced by Boris Johnson in April 2022. The government has already spent 140 million on the plan, but Wednesday's ruling by the UK's most senior high court effectively ends the policy's chances of ever being realized in its current form. So what? Are they going to tell Rwanda to pay the 140 million that they paid them back? What do you think? Well. Rishi Sunak is to face Keir Starmer, the PMQ, this afternoon, which I'll be taking you there in the next 4 minutes, so just bear with me. But for those of you who want to know about inflation, well, inflation has fallen. UK inflation fell sharply in October to its lowest rate in 2 years, largely due to lower energy prices. Inflation, which measures the rate at which consumer prices rise, dropped to 4.6% in the year to October, down from 6.7% the month before. The government says it pledged to have inflation by the end of the year. Its pledge has been met early, but there is a limit to how much credit ministers can take for the fall as energy prices settle. Economists have said the main reason inflation has fallen from its peak of 11.1% in October is due to a fall this month in the energy price cap, which limits what suppliers can charge consumers per unit of energy. They also note that the Bank of England is seeking to raise interest rates in a bid to cool demand in the UK economy and slow prices. Price rises. Rates are currently at 5.25%, a 15-year high, which has pushed up mortgage costs but also led to higher savings rates. But how is it going to pan out? Well, I'll be telling you more about all that as the days unfold. But it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I was going to bring you one other story, but it's eluded me, and because my time is almost over, so I will just quickly cross over to the Houses of Parliament for the PMQ. So Let me say thank you very much. But this evening, exactly at 18 hours, as we did say, Mr. Olayomi Koiki will be coming your way with the Niger Voices. So stay tuned and don't you go away. Starr, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London.
Starr Radio UK.
Are you ready to turn it up?
decision means for the government's plan to tackle illegal immigration?
Prime Minister. Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his question? I know he has championed this issue and it matters to his constituents. As I said, the judgment confirms that the principle of removing asylum seekers to a safe third country is lawful. The government has already been working in advance on a new treaty with Rwanda, which we will finalise in light of today's judgment, so to address the challenges that were raised. But let me say this again, if if it becomes clear that our domestic legal frameworks or international conventions are still frustrating plans at that point, I am prepared to change our laws and revisit those international relationships. The British people expect us to do whatever it takes to stop the boats, and that is precisely what this government will deliver.
I come the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister obviously thinks so little of his own MPs that he's had to peel David Cameron away from his 7-year exile in a shepherd's hut and make him Foreign Secretary. But a few months ago, the Intelligence and Security Committee said that the now Foreign Secretary's role in a Chinese investment fund may have been, and this is their words, engineered by the Chinese state. I hardly need to remind the Prime Minister of the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party or the intimidation against members of this House. So when will he instruct the Foreign Secretary to give full public disclosure of his work for Chinese interests?
Mr. Speaker, as I said, I'm delighted that the former Prime Minister has rejoined government as Foreign Secretary. As an individual with unrivalled experience, he will help Britain navigate an uncertain world in challenging times. Of course, like every other government minister, he will go through the normal process with the independent advisor. But the government's position on China is clear. China represents an epoch-defining challenge. That's why we have taken strong and robust steps to protect ourselves against the risk that it poses. But we'll take no lessons, Mr. Speaker, from the Labour Party on protecting our national security. They've taken almost £700,000 from an alleged Chinese agent.
Mr. Speaker,
Sorry? Yes, I think now you're on the front bench. We need to just calm down. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, for someone who spent the last few weeks complaining about recycling bins, it's ironic that his latest reset involves recycling the architects of 13 years of Tory failure. But this is the Prime Minister who also reanimated the career of the member for Fareham in order to resuscitate his own just days after she was sacked for a national security breach. Is he ashamed that he was so desperate to become Tory leader, so scared to face a vote, that he put someone so totally unfit for office in charge of Britain's national security?
Mr. Speaker, he mentions 13 years. We remember what happened at the beginning of that 13 years. It was this party that restored this country's financial security after the Labour Party left no money behind, Mr. Speaker. And it is a bit rich to take lectures on security from a man who wanted to make the former member for Islington North Prime Minister of our country.
The member for Islington North isn't even a Labour MP anymore. A changed party and strong leadership. Mr.
Speaker. Luke, with a lot of business today, very important business with some important votes, and I want to get through this speedily. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, for 13 years our security has been undermined by this Tory government. And now the most ridiculous, pathetic spectacle of all. His Rwanda scheme, cooked up with his National Security Threat Home Secretary, has blown up. He was told over and over again that this would happen, that it wouldn't work, and it was just the latest Tory gimmick. But he bet everything on it, and now he's totally exposed. The central pillar of his government has crumbled beneath him. Does he want to apologise to the country for wasting £140 million of taxpayer cash and wasting his entire time in office?
Mr. Speaker, obviously the person officer didn't hear what I said about our approach to Rwanda, and not least when it comes to stopping the boats. Rwanda is one part of our plan which has already delivered a reduction in the number of small boats this year by a third, Mr. Speaker. But he talks about apologising, he talks about the former member not being a Labour MP now. Yes, he wasn't a Labour MP when he declined 15 different times to say that Hamas was a terrorist organisation this week, which is shameful. But he was a Labour MP. Indeed, the honourable gentleman served with him. He told the country he would make a great Prime Minister. At that point, he described Hamas as friends. Does he want to apologise for that now?
Are we serious?
No.
Because I'm going to tell... Oh, I wouldn't challenge. Because I've got to say, our constituents are watching this. They're very, very concerned about the affairs of today. They're very concerned about the votes later. A lot of members wish to speak. Those who don't want that to happen, please, go outside, go and have a conversation there. You want to bawl and shout, do it elsewhere. But it won't be happening in here today. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad he agrees this is a changed Labour Party. And while he was wasting his time on this gimmick, the asylum backlog has swollen to 175,000 people. Taxpayers are paying £8 million a day on hotel bills, and 615 people arrived by small boat last Sunday alone. Plan A has failed. And after this session, whether he likes it or not, he'll have to go back to his office, back to the drawing board, and start from scratch. Can he assure the British public that he will drop what his former Home Secretary calls his magical thinking and start treating small boat crossings with the seriousness that they deserve?
Mr. Speaker, he talks about a changed Labour Party. Perhaps we'll see that this evening. He can't even make his party do the right thing when it comes to standing by Israel in the vote later today. He talks about taking small boats crossing seriously. He's opposed every single measure that we have taken, Mr. Speaker. Again, let me update him on what we've done this year. The number of illegal Albania arrivals down by 90%. 20,000 people returned this year. The number of crossings down by a third. He mentioned hotels, closing 50 of them. Money being saved for taxpayers. All, by the way, opposed by the party opposite. What is the Honourable Gentleman's plan? Yes, there we have it. A cosy deal with the EU, which would see the UK accept 100,000 illegal migrants. He doesn't want to stop the boats. He wants to welcome more of them.
Mr. Speaker, it's very straightforward. He promised that he would stop the boats this year. This year. Today is the 15th of November. He's wasted all of his time on a gimmick, and now he's absolutely nowhere. Will he level with the British public and finally admit he's failed to deliver on his promise?
Mr. Speaker, this government has done more to tackle illegal migration than any in the past. And again, let's just review, Mr. Speaker. He's been on the wrong side of this issue his entire career. This is a man who described all immigration law as racist. He said it was a mistake to control immigration, and he has never once in this place voted for stricter asylum rules. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, while he might want to listen to the open border activists, I'm siding with the British people.
I would have thought if he was confident about his promise, he would have given an answer saying he stands by it and will deliver by the end of the year. But the absence of that answer is absolutely amazing in the circumstances. He's had 3 reshuffles, a forgotten conference speech, an empty King speech. He even found time to fanboy Elon Musk. But not one of them has made the slightest difference to the lives of working people. If we had £1 for every time we had a reset, the cost of living crisis would be over long ago. Now, he likes to think of himself as the man from Silicon Valley, the tech-savvy Californian, the country's first AIPM. And yet his big idea is to keep turning his government on and off and hope at the wall and hope that we'll see signs of life. Is he starting to feel that, as somebody once said, he was the future once?
I slightly missed the end of that, but I've got to say, I was glad to hear finally the Honourable Gentleman did bring up the cost of living, because on that he is right. It is the #1 challenge facing countries up and down the family. And today, he mentioned it, but what he failed to recognise, and he talked about delivering on promises, today was a day that we delivered on the most important pledge I make to halve inflation, Mr. Speaker. Delivering on a commitment, easing the burden for families up and down the country. What we would see from the party opposite is everything would jeopardise that progress, borrowing £28 billion a year, undermining our energy security, giving in to inflation-busting pay rises to his union backers. That's not a sensible plan, Mr. Speaker. It would push up mortgage rates, push up inflation, harm working families. All the while, we're going to continue delivering for the country.
And now for something completely different, question 4.
We are. Prime Minister.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure my honourable friend will be delighted that the West Midlands now tops regional rankings for foreign direct investment. The government is also significantly investing in the region, including hundreds of millions of pounds for Levelling Up Fund and Towns Fund investments, and introducing a new pilot scheme to help businesses in the region become more energy efficient.
Sir Michael.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for that encouraging answer? And on behalf of my constituents in Lichfield, may I thank him for having the guts to actually stop HS2. But can I ask that the area within my constituency in the north, where construction is still going on, that this happens swiftly, and that those areas which are not going to have HS2, compensation is also made swiftly to those people who are expecting it.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his question, but also for his consistent campaigning on this issue, and I recall his last question at Prime Minister's Questions on this very topic. I'd like to reassure him that we are committed to fair treatment for people affected by the changes, whilst also protecting taxpayers appropriately. Wherever property has been acquired for HS2, property owners have been fully compensated, and any outstanding cases will be settled. We are developing a programme to sell the surplus land on HS2 Phase 2 and ensure that it delivers value for money, does not disrupt local property markets, and I'll ensure that the Rail Minister talks and meets with him swiftly on behalf of his constituents.
MP Leader Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, in 2010, the then Prime Minister and now Foreign Secretary David Cameron said that people in Gaza are living under constant attacks and pressure in an open-air prison. Does the current Prime Minister not agree that if there is not an immediate ceasefire, then all of us in this chamber will be watching on as that open-air prison is turned into a graveyard?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no one can deny the suffering that the people in Gaza are undergoing at the moment. I spoke about this on Monday, and I spoke about it consistently with Mahmoud Abbas, the President of the Palestinian Authority, which is why we're doing everything we can to get aid into the region, and we have repeatedly and consistently called for humanitarian pauses to get aid in and to get hostages and those that need to get out, foreign nationals, as quickly as possible, and will continue, as the Foreign Secretary will do, to make sure that that happens.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, how much worse does it need to get? 4,609 children are already dead in Gaza. Babies in the neonatal intensive care unit are dying because they don't have access to oxygen. For members across the House, this is a question of values, and it is a question of conscience. So does the Prime Minister not agree that should there be a vote on an immediate ceasefire, that members across the House should be afforded a free vote?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our position as a government is clear on this. It's right that Israel is able to defend itself, and that principle is one which we support. It has suffered an appalling terrorist attack. Hamas is a terrorist organisation, and it is not just Israel's right but duty to protect its citizens. At the same time, we have consistently at the United Nations and bilaterally with all our partners called for humanitarian pauses to ensure that more aid can get in, hostages and nationals can get out. That's the right thing to do. We will continue to do everything we can to alleviate the suffering that the Palestinian people are undergoing, and I'm confident that our efforts are already making a big difference on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Kirklees Council have closed Dewsbury Sports Centre, delivered just 14% of educational healthcare plans within a 20-week target, are unable to deliver a 5-year land supply, just 3 of its many failings, and now they want to introduce extortionate car parking charges, punishing hard-working families and destroying the high street in our towns and villages. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that Labour-run Kirklees Council is no longer fit for purpose?
Mr. Speaker, I share my honourable friend's disappointment with the Labour-run council in Kirklees. Just this week, we saw, I believe, a Labour councillor suspended for anti-Semitism. As he said, they've also closed the Dewsbury Sports Centre and are proposing to increase car parking charges, punishing local businesses and shoppers in the run-up to Christmas. The council is clearly no longer fit for purpose, and local residents deserve better.
Speaker, last week, members from across the House heard testimony from a young Israeli man who lost both of his peace campaigning parents in the October the 7th attack. This morning we heard from Palestinians who have lost generations of families in the south of Gaza because of the military attacks there. This is a question of humanity and morality.
Hear, hear.
The Prime Minister has an opportunity to lead the calls for peace or endorse death, violence and destruction. Which will he choose?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I think that's an extremely naive and simplistic way to look at it. What he failed to mention in his question was the fact that a prescribed terrorist organisation perpetrated an awful attack on over 1,000 individuals, and Israel has every right to defend itself in those circumstances, and their country would expect nothing less for them to provide security for their citizens. Now, of course, alongside that, they must abide by international law, and we will do everything we can, as I have said, to make sure that aid flows in and provides alleviation to the suffering that the people in Gaza are seeing.
Kevin Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Proposals for a new rail station at Edginswell have been looked forward to for a decade, but a final funding gap exists. Will some of the funds released by the decision to scrap further phases of HS2 be used to resolve this?
Prime Minister. I can assure my honourable friend that our decision on HS2 means every region of the country will now receive more transport investment than it would have done before, including the South West. I'm pleased that funding is happening to protect the vital rail link between Exeter and Plymouth. There'll be a £2.8 billion road resurfacing fund, and his constituents in the South West will continue to benefit from the £2 bus fare until the end of next year. I know that we have previously provided almost £8 million to progress the station that he mentions, and I'll reassure him that the Rail Minister will have heard his representations and continue to update him on the progress that they're making.
Dixman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. David Cameron was the well-paid public face of Lex Greensill. Greensill's companies are facing criminal investigations in Switzerland, Germany and here in the UK. David Cameron messaged ministers and officials 62 times over Greensill's COVID loan guarantees. The Treasury Select Committee called this a significant lack of judgment. What does his appointment say about the Prime Minister's own judgment?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman knows, the government commissioned Nigel Boardman to review all those issues and strengthen the system following those recommendations. But I'm very confident, Mr. Speaker, that this nation will be well represented by the former Prime Minister abroad. He's a Prime Minister with unrivalled experience of foreign affairs, will help Britain navigate an uncertain world in challenging times. And in contrast, the party opposite would offer to the country a shadow foreign secretary who backed his predecessor to be leader, was paid to appear on Russian television, and even voted against Trident. Does that sound like a man who should represent Britain?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The inflation numbers this morning were very welcome, but the tax burden continues to bite. So will the Prime Minister agree in principle with me that the concept of higher rate tax was never meant to drag in police sergeants, Band-Aid nurses, teachers with additional responsibilities and others, and that a priority for his Treasury ministers should be to return fairness to the tax thresholds?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I agree with the honourable gentleman, and I'm pleased that the vast majority of people will continue not to pay the higher rate. I share his ambition to cut taxes for working people. Right now, inflation is falling, and we're sticking to our plan, which is delivering a halving of it this year, because that is the most effective tax cut that we could have delivered for the British people this year, rather than making it worse, as the party opposite would, borrowing money in the way that would be irresponsible and just drive up inflation and interest rates. But I want to reassure him that I absolutely share his ambition to cut taxes for working people, and as we stabilise the economy, that's something that both the Chancellor and I are keen to deliver.
Mr. Speaker, my son loves football, and I understand the Prime Minister is a big Southampton supporter. So after his latest cabinet reshuffle, I wonder if he can tell me, since 2010, have we seen more Southampton managers being sacked, or have we seen more housing ministers come and go? The answer might help to explain why the government is failing so miserably in new home ownership.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased. I'm pleased that in the last figures that we saw, we had actually a record number of first-time buyers, Mr. Speaker, and we're delivering 1 million homes over this Parliament, as we said, whilst the party opposite blocked our plans to unlock 100,000 homes at the same time. And when it comes to Southampton, I'm also pleased that we're on, I think, almost a 7 or 8 game unbeaten run.
If a two-state solution is to have a chance, Hamas must be defeated, but also there will have to first be a more enlightened policy of administration in the occupied West Bank, mustn't there?
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question. The UK's long-standing position on the Middle East peace process is very clear. We support a negotiated settlement leading to a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state in Gaza and the West Bank. I spoke about this on Monday. Both Israelis and Palestinians have a right to live in peace and security. The longer-term governance of Gaza and security needs to be looked at in the round. It's something that I've discussed repeatedly with President Abbas. We agree with the United States that Gaza should ultimately be under the control of the Palestinian Authority, and we will continue to support President Abbas and his people to get to that outcome.
Mr. Speaker, a new generation of drugs, or can be Simkevi and Kaftrio, is absolutely transforming the lives of patients with cystic fibrosis. So people who would have been waiting for double lung transplants now living happy, healthy lives. But NICE is now saying we can't afford them. So will the Prime Minister and his new Health Secretary get round the table with NICE and with the drugs company to make sure that children being born with cystic fibrosis today get those life-saving drugs in the same way that children currently living with CF are getting them?
Prime Minister. I thank the Honourable Lady for raising an important issue. I'll of course ask the Health Secretary to look into it. I shall understand that NICE operates independently from government, but if there's a conversation that can be had, I'll ensure that it takes place.
David Davis.
The events of the last 6 weeks, can the Prime Minister tell the House why the government has not proscribed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this government continues to take strong action against Iran, whilst people in the UK and around the world are under threat from the regime. We've sanctioned more than 350 Iranian individuals and entities, including the IRGC in its entirety. The National Security Act of this year implements new measures to protect the British public, including new offences for espionage and foreign interference. And while the government keeps the list of proscribed organisations under review, as members will be aware, it is a long-standing convention that we don't comment on whether a specific organisation is being considered for proscription.
He just said he had unprecedented experience. What would he say was David Cameron's finest foreign policy achievement?
Mr. Speaker, I think there's Mr. Speaker, in fact, the many to pick from. But what I would say is under his leadership, this country hosted what was widely considered to be one of the most successful G8 summits of recent times.
It was great to welcome the Prime Minister to Chelmsford earlier this year, where he launched his antisocial behaviour strategy, and he will be pleased to know that the local police have consistently been stepping up their activities. Last week they arrested 24 people for many crimes, and last night they took out a major significant county lines gang. So please, will he join me in congratulating all those in our local police? And would he like to come back to Chelmsford and come out and patrol? He's very
Minister.
Well, it was great to visit my honourable friend and launch the government's antisocial behaviour plan. Can I thank her for raising awareness about the important work that her local policing team is doing, and I'm pleased that they've been empowered by our strategy. Antisocial behaviour does make life miserable for many. That's why our plan being delivered is so important. It's having a difference across the country, including in her part of the world, and I'm pleased to see that crime under this government, in the year that we most recently have data for, has decreased by 56% since 2010.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's insulting that in the week that marks 20 years since the abolition of Section 28, the Prime Minister has appointed a minister without portfolio who frequently attacks the LGBTQ+ community with their so-called war on woke, seeks a return to those awful days, denying our human rights and attacking our very existence. Does the Prime Minister agree that he has manifestly and repeatedly failed? It's time for him to resign and to call a general election.
Mr. Speaker, actually, this government and previous have a proud record in championing LGBT rights. It was this government that introduced same-sex marriage, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to ensure that everyone in our society can live with tolerance and compassion and have every opportunity available for them. That's what we have delivered, and that's what we'll continue delivering.
Mr. Speaker, last year through the Homes for Ukraine scheme, my family and I welcomed a refugee family to our home. And I'm proud that this country has always offered refuge to those who need it. But it's essential that we in this country decide who comes to this country. The Prime Minister has rightly said that he will do whatever it takes to stop the small boats and the evil trade around them. But isn't it apparent that after this morning's ruling, what it will take is a new law to override the Human Rights Act and to cut through the thicket of case law built up by judicial activism so that we can bring back control of our borders and stop the small boats?
Mr. Speaker, it's right that we go through the judgment carefully and properly, and as I said, the government has already been working in advance on a new treaty with Rwanda to address the concerns that have been raised, that were raised previously and that were raised by the Supreme Court, who also acknowledge that changes can be delivered to address those issues. But as I said, and I'll repeat, if it becomes clear that our domestic legal frameworks, or indeed international conventions, are still frustrating plans after that point, I am prepared to change our laws and revisit those international relationships, because we are absolutely committed to stopping the boats.
John Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, thank you for meeting with my constituent Noam. It has been 40 days since Noam's mum, Ada Sagi, was kidnapped by Hamas on October the 7th. We all condemn Hamas's actions and fight for the return of all hostages. Noam wants the language of love to be louder than the language of hate. 11,000 Palestinians have been killed, over 4,000 of them children. International law is important. Does the Prime Minister